Election Day was 4 weeks ago today.
That's hard to believe.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's very humbling. It's hard to believe it's already been 4 weeks, but in many ways, for all the progress we've made in the course of this transition, which is moving at a historic and a record pace. I mean, this transition actually is now, it's been certified that President-elect Trump is moving faster than any president-elect has in naming cabinet officials for the last 40 years. It's exciting to be a part of it.
So let's talk about the number one item on the news right now, which is the president-elect starting to talk about canceling the Boeing contract. That's how he began his day. Take a listen.
Well, the plane is totally out of control. It's going to be over $4 billion. It's for Air Force One program. And I think it's ridiculous. I think Boeing is doing a little bit of a number. We want Boeing to make a lot of money, but not that much money.
Now, there's no question that there should be more oversight over these contracts, but I guess critics are wondering, is this the best way to do it? The president-elect said that. The Boeing stock took a big hit. It's rebounded, but it took a big hit before the markets opened. It's an American company, the biggest exporter in the United States. It employs 150,000 people, most of them in this country. I guess the first question is, where does the $4 billion figure come from? Because that's confusing a lot of people.
Well, I think the General Accounting Office certified it north of $3 billion, and it's a contract that can grow. The President-elect is demonstrating today what the American people hired as our next president, a businessman that knows how to sharpen his pencils. And no sooner did he hear about a $4 billion contract for a couple of new installments of Air Force One that he said we should cancel the contract, put a hold on it. And as you know, Donald Trump's a man who's bought a few airplanes. He's still got a few airplanes, and he's going to be a real champion for taxpayers and for fiscal responsibility. And this is just the first installment.
Would you call that the bully pulpit, even though he isn't the president yet? I mean, using the bully pulpit to send a signal to a company? I
think you could call it the bully pulpit on behalf of fiscal responsibility, not a message to a particular company. Look, what you have, and I saw it last week in Cincinnati for the thank you rally. He'll be in North Carolina tonight. I'll be traveling with him later this week, is someone who's going to go straight to the American people with his priorities. He's going to go straight to the American people with our agenda. And I was on Capitol Hill today meeting with members of the Senate. And I told them that, remember, as we lay out this aggressive agenda for that first 100 days on Capitol Hill, they're going to have in a inaugurated President Donald Trump someone who is not just going to go to Capitol Hill to drive his agenda. He's going to go to the American people, and he's going to marshal the support of the American people to drive forward an agenda to make America great again.
I want to ask you about an incident on the transition today. Michael G. Flynn, the son of the future National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, has been pushing a bunch of conspiracy theories, including one that ended up impacting where you're staying right now, your local pizza place, Comet Pizza. An insane lie spread online. It led a North Carolina man to barge into the restaurant with two weapons. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Now, Flynn Jr. Was on the transition team, but a source familiar with the situation tells me that he was asked to leave and that the direct order came from President-elect Trump. Tell me what happened.
Well, what I can say is that we are so grateful and honored to have General Flynn as our nominee for National Security Advisor. He brings an extraordinary wealth of experience. He's also a dedicated family man. And I said this morning that his son had no involvement in the transition, but I've talked to General Flynn, and his son was helping him a bit with scheduling and administrative items, but that's no longer the case. Look, all of our families want to be helpful. And 4 weeks to the day from Election Day, there's been an awful lot of work to do. But Mike Flynn Jr. is no longer associated with General Flynn's efforts or with the transition team, and we're focused eyes forward.
You're downplaying his role, but you must be aware that the transition team put in for security clearance for Michael G. Flynn, the son of Lieutenant General Flynn.
Well, I'm aware in talking to General Flynn that his son was helping with scheduling, Jake.
No, but you put in for security clearance for him.
He was helping his dad arrange for meetings and provide meetings, but that's no longer the case.
But do you need security clearance to do scheduling?
I think that's the appropriate decision for us to move forward, avoid any further distraction, and I'm very confident as we continue to build this team. As tonight you'll see the President-elect formally announce General Mattis as the new Secretary of the Department of Defense, that the American people are going to be impressed with the way that the President-elect is bringing together men and women that are make America safe again.
I want to move on to other issues, but I'm afraid I just didn't get an answer, which is, were you aware that the transition had put in for a security clearance for Michael Flynn Jr.?
You know, I've worked very closely with General Flynn. We've met on many occasions. I've never seen his son present for any of those meetings.
But you're head of the transition team, so you know who you put in for security clearances for.
Well, General Flynn did inform me that his son was helping on administrative matters. But Jake, this is all the kind of distraction that frankly, I know, with all due respect, the national media likes to go chasing after. I think what the American people are impressed by, and it's a reason why, frankly, you see public opinion on the rise about the President-elect in the last 4 weeks, is because they're seeing the kind of decisive leadership that Donald Trump is bringing to this transition. It's the kind of energetic leadership that's going to focus on the priorities of the American people, building a team, building a legislative agenda, driving our nation forward to a stronger, more prosperous America.
The last question on this, sir, and I'm sorry, you're not answering the question, which is, were you aware that the transition team had put in for a security clearance? I mean, this is a young man who had a social media profile that had all sorts of crazy conspiracy theories, that had all sorts of links and retweets with white supremacists. Were you aware that the transition put in for a security clearance for him?
Well, what I can tell you is that in talking with General Flynn today, he made me aware that his son was assisting him in scheduling
and that you'd put in for a security
meetings
clearance.
And well, whatever the appropriate paperwork was to assist him in that regard, Jake, I'm sure was taking place. But that's no longer the case, and your viewers and the American people can be confident that we're going to continue to drive forward. Look, this is a very challenging time for America's place in the world. It was a week ago yesterday that we saw a terrorist-inspired attack on the Ohio State campus. We're bringing together with General Mike Flynn, with KT McFarland, with a team that's going to surround them and advise this president. People that are going to set into motion, I'm confident, the policies that'll make America safe again at home and abroad.
And it was just 2 days ago that we saw somebody with a gun go to Comet Pizza because of this crazy conspiracy theory that Michael G. Flynn had been putting out there, defended afterwards, and you guys put in for security clearance. But I will move on because I want to talk about Obamacare. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said today that Obamacare, they'd start the process of trying to repeal it on day one. House Speaker Paul Ryan has said it would probably take about 3 years to come up with a replacement. Is that good enough for you? President-elect Trump says repeal and replace. Is repeal now, replace 3 years later? Is that okay, or do you want to see a change in that timeline?
Well, let me say the first thing we're going to do, and the President-elect has indicated this to the leaders of the House and Senate, is we're going to keep our promise to the American people, and we're going to repeal Obamacare, lock, stock, and barrel. But what we're also going to do is work with members of the House and Senate to ensure an orderly transition. And the length of time that will take will be a subject of legislative debate, and we'll fill in the substance of that. We're also prepared, as I told members of the Senate today, Jake, the President-elect is prepared on day one to put into effect the kind of administrative action that will ensure that transition happens on an orderly basis. But we've got to take action. I mean, the truth is Obamacare right now is scheduled to increase premiums by an average of 25% all across this country, putting an enormous weight on American families and American businesses. In Arizona alone, premiums are scheduled to go up an average of 116%. We're going to use the vehicle of a budget resolution right out of the box, and we're going to repeal Obamacare, and we're going to set into motion the kind of orderly process that will address the health care needs of this country, harnessing the power of the free market, giving consumers more choices in health insurance. All of the kind of ideas that the President-elect talked about as a candidate, we're going to keep those promises once he takes a seat in the Oval Office.
For those who can't afford health insurance and who only have it because of the Medicaid expansion, which you know well because of being the governor of Indiana, and also because of the stipends, what should they expect during this transition period? Will their Medicaid expansion stay there?
Well, I would anticipate that a part of what we will do is what the President-elect has called for through the course of the campaign. And that is while we take the mandate off every American that exists under Obamacare, the threat of higher taxes against individuals and businesses, We're going to develop a plan to block grant Medicaid back to the states so that states can do exactly what Indiana was able to do in part by reforming Medicaid. The state of Indiana, which President-elect and I have talked an awful lot about, actually Medicaid recipients can have health savings accounts to be able to have first dollar benefits. They make monthly contributions to those health savings accounts, and they're given credit for preventive medicine and wellness. These are all the kind of market principles that states can innovate in Medicaid, and it's going to be part and parcel of our plan to replace Obamacare.
Last question for you, sir, because I know you have a lot of meetings to do. Your son is a Marine.
He is.
You and your boss, more your boss, but with your advice and consent and help, will now be in charge of the lives of our men and women in uniform. I'm wondering, this will be the first time that you play a role like this, sending troops or helping a president to send troops into battle or not send troops into battle. And you'll be doing so as a dad who has a son in the Marines. And I'm just wondering how that might impact you. Sometimes generals, as they say, the biggest doves in Washington are the ones with with stars on their shoulders because they understand the sacrifice. And you, in a different way, will be able to understand it. How will it affect you, do you think?
Well, Jake, I think it will affect me the way it affects every American when we think about those decisions. And I think what people can take great comfort in, and when they see General Mattis take to that stage tonight as the nominee to be the new leader at the Department of Defense, and they think about his extraordinary background, they can be confident that they're going to have a president in Donald Trump who's going to rebuild our military and believes firmly that we will have peace through strength. A stronger America is a safer America. A stronger America is a safer and more stable world. But I can tell you that we'll also have a commander-in-chief that'll look at the lives of the men and women who serve in uniform as they were his very own kids, and will approach those decisions, I know he will, with prayer and with reflection. But the objective is to have an America strong enough with a rebuilt military, with our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guard able to have the resources and training to do their job so that we don't ever have to ask them to fight.
Vice President-elect Mike Pence from the great state of Indiana, thank you so much. Best of luck to you, sir.
Thank
Best
you,
of
Jim.
luck to you. Appreciate
Good to
it.
see you.